years. I'm not going to say I would or I wouldn't. I mean, DeSantis is willing to sign a 5-week and 6-week ban.
We'll be talking about this with our political panel coming up. First, constitutional scholar and Harvard Law School professor Laurence Tribe joins me. He's the author of To End a Presidency, The Power of Impeachment. So, Professor Tribe, did the former president undermine his own defense by saying it was his decision to go after the result of the 2020 election? There's obviously been a lot of talk that he may argue at trial that he was just listening to legal advice.
Well, I think he threw his own defense not just under a bus, but under a freight train. It's very hard to say that I was relying on legal advice as a defense at trial when you tell the world through Kristen Welker on NBC that he was relying on his own advice. It's said sometimes that only a fool hires himself as a lawyer to defend himself. I don't think Trump is a fool, but he's certainly a narcissist. He just has to say that he is responsible for everything. He doesn't depend on anybody. That's all very nice politically, but in the courtroom, he's just blown that defense, the defense that I was just relying on my lawyers, and therefore I didn't have the state of mind that it takes to commit these crimes. He's just blown that out of the water.
I mean, he did sort of, hedge it a little. He said while it was his decision, he also said he, quote, listened to some people. I mean, does that give him wiggle room to still attempt the advice of counsel defense? Because he also said that, he didn't trust and didn't, respect the lawyers who were arguing the counter argument, which were basically the White House counsel and legitimate attorneys.
Well, he can say he relied on astrologers and he relied on other people, all kinds of people, but the specific defense that says I was just following the directions of my lawyers, it's a very narrow defense. It's not just like saying, I read the papers, I listen to everybody. That won't do. If you are accused of the various crimes that Jack Smith has obtained indictments for, and you say that, well, it may be that I did these things, but I was innocent because I was basically a pawn following my lawyer's instruction. That's not an easy defense under any circumstances. But when you have said publicly what Donald Trump said, then that defense is just not going to fly with the jury, especially if you're not willing to take the stand because he has a right not to. But the only way he could explain all of that to the jury is by giving up that right and taking the stand. But he is not likely to because everyone knows that he would perjure himself. So he's really gotten himself into quite a corner.
The former president's defenders argue that if he genuinely believed the election was stolen, then there's no corrupt intent. Is it that simple?
It's not that simple. You can believe that money was stolen from you, but it doesn't give you the right to break into Fort Knox and take an equivalent amount back from the government. So that even if he did genuinely believe that he had won the election, which is pretty hard to believe given what everybody was telling him and given that there are instances where he actually said, I can't believe I lost to that guy Biden. Even if he actually believed it, it wouldn't get rid of his criminal liability. But again, the only way he could possibly convince even one juror and get a hung jury that he was just an innocent guy who convinced himself that he was incapable of losing, the only way he could do that would be to take the stand and testify under oath. But I think even though he says he would love to testify under oath, he's always said that, he's never done it in any of these proceedings. So we'll just have to see.